Yeah, listen, I don't think Canelo wants to fight speedy guys who box off the back foot and counter punch. That's why I think he liked the Munguia fight and he likes the Berlanga fight, because they're two guys that will come face on and have a war with him. Do you know what I mean? And he likes those kind of fights. He doesn't like, he was disappointed.
To fighters, one ring, and millions of eyes will be locked on what could be the most talked about fight of the decade. Terence Crawford is a 4-weight world champion known for his precise technique and killer sense against Canelo Alvarez, the super middleweight king who has dominated opponents with raw power and relentless pressure.
Canelo versus Crawford, the biggest fight in the game.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're looking at Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, this is the next thing beyond that.
It's the kind of fight that makes boxing fans hold their breath. But what if the real action already happened behind closed doors? Yes, there's talk of leaked sparring footage between these two legends, hinting at what their final clash might look like.
Terence Crawford, I see he wants to fight. He's made it clear. Do fights like that help your legacy, or do you feel like that's something that's not worth it to you?
Everything in my career, every fight make my legacy different and better.
The buzz is impossible to ignore, with whispers getting louder and louder. Insiders say this fight might take place as early as September, possibly in Las Vegas, the city of lights and legendary fights. The Ring claimed that negotiations are heating up, and while fans salivate at the thought of this matchup, not everyone in the boxing world is on board. Some experts, like famous coach Abel Sanchez, have boldly dismissed the idea of Crawford versus Canelo as ridiculous. Sanchez, the mastermind behind middleweight legend Gennady Golovkin during his time, isn't shy about his opinion. "It's not a real fight," he said in an interview with Co-Sports TV. Harsh words, especially given Crawford is coming off a dominant win over Errol Spence Jr. to unify the welterweight division. But Sanchez's reasoning is simple: the weight gap.
Being that you obviously again appealing Team Crawford, can you confirm? Are we gonna see that fight? Has it been made official? Is it official?
It's on, baby. September 13, baby. Look forward to it. Crawford versus Canelo.
Heard it.
Listen how I said it.
Hey, are we getting this confirmation here first?
You understand? Yeah, it's confirmed. Man, what?
Say less.
Crawford versus Canelo, not the other way around. Team Crawford, stand up. Pound for pound, the best in the...
Let's talk numbers. Crawford has built his career around the lighter divisions, starting at lightweight and moving through the ranks to super welterweight. On the other hand, Canelo has bulked up over the years, beating middleweight, super middleweight, and even taking a belt at light heavyweight. That's a lot of muscle and power for Crawford to deal with. Sanchez didn't stop there. Crawford hasn't changed. He's the same boxer he was at 135 and 147. Sure, he's great, but he hasn't grown enough to deal with a monster like Canelo at the higher weights. He said it's a tough critique, but one that makes a valid point. Canelo's evolution has been undeniable, adapting his style to each new weight class while keeping his signature explosiveness.
The only thing I see that I favor Canelo is that his weight, and that he's more bigger. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing. But as far as skill set wise, IQ, I feel like Crawford can match anybody and probably do way better. You know what I'm saying? But Crawford is a legend, bro.
Yeah.
And like I said.
And then there's the question of destruction. Sanchez pointed out that while Crawford is a technical genius, his knockouts haven't been as deadly as Canelo's. Crawford isn't destroying everyone he beats. Errol Spence, but Spence wasn't the same boxer anymore. Canelo, he's destroying everyone he faces. It's a different level of power. For all the skepticism, there's no denying the fight's draw. It's a moneymaker, plain and simple. Crawford's sharp skills versus Canelo's brute strength is a tale that writes itself. Fans would flock to Vegas or tune in from home, making it a blockbuster event. But Sanchez isn't sure that the hype translates to a legitimate contest.
What do you think about Terence Crawford calling out Canelo?
I don't like that fight.
Why not?
I don't like that fight. It's just too much weight, and he had a close fight with the last guy he fought, Terence, because this guy was big.
Sure, it'll sell tickets, but is it a fair fight? No. Sanchez said bluntly, it's not the first time boxing has seen fights that felt more like show than sport. Think Mayweather versus McGregor, a fun ride but hardly competitive still. Crawford isn't a fighter who shies away from obstacles. His rise through the weight classes has been a testament to his skill and adaptability. When he took on Errol Spence Jr., many thought he could handle the size and strength of a natural welterweight, but Crawford silenced critics in spectacular fashion, outboxing and outfighting Spence to score an emphatic stoppage victory.
Bivol fight. You can say who you think is going to win. You can't say like, oh man, I'm surprised the Bivol won, or I'm surprised the Benavidez won. You're like, man, that's a damn good fight. so-and-so won. So kind of how I feel about the David and Canelo fight, like who had the best camp, who has the best game.
And yet Canelo is a different beast entirely. The Mexican hero has faced bigger and harder-hitting opponents and come out on top. Whether it was his wars with Gennady Golovkin, his clinical dismantling of Callum Smith, or his leap to light heavyweight to dethrone Sergey Kovalev, Canelo has proven time and again that he lives against the odds. But here's the wild card. The rumored sparring video report suggests that Crawford and Canelo might have already traded leather in a private gym session, giving a sneak peek at how their styles clash. Did Crawford's precision catch Canelo off guard, or did Canelo's power make Crawford think twice about going up in weight? While nothing official has surfaced, the mere thought has fans dissecting every detail. Crawford's camp remains tight-lipped, but some insiders say he held his own even landing sharp combinations that showcased his speed and accuracy. Meanwhile, others say that Canelo's body shots, those brutal bone-crunching punches he's famous for, left Crawford struggling to find an answer. If the leaked video exists, it's only adding fuel to the fire. A fight that was already intriguing has now become a must. See the event with both fighters' names on the line. Of course, timing is everything. Canelo has forced challengers to deal with, including Cuban fighter William Skull, who most consider a tune-up opponent. Crawford, meanwhile, has choices at super welterweight, but none as lucrative or legacy-defining as a showdown with Canelo. Matchroom promoter Eddie Hearn thinks September in Vegas is the perfect time and place for the fight, aligning with boxing's history of delivering marquee matchups under the bright lights of Sin City. Of course I'd beat him. There's no question in my mind that I can beat anyone I step in the ring with. Terence Crawford stated with unshakable confidence when the question of fighting Canelo Alvarez was raised. The undefeated champ seems to have no fear in his heart despite the obvious differences in size, weight, and power between himself and the Mexican icon. But how realistic is Crawford's confidence, and does it even matter given the roadblocks in making this fight happen? Crawford knows the stakes. He knows Canelo is not just another opponent. He's a cash cow, a superstar who gets the kind of payday most fighters dream about. The Nebraskan boxer thinks this fight would benefit both men, not just financially but in terms of legacy. We're both giving away something, but we're both getting something at the same time. Crawford told TMZ Sports.
I'm gonna tell you like this. I think Crawford rebuttal was everybody always say he hasn't fought nobody or everybody that he fought was a no name. But I'm gonna tell you like this, what Crawford said. Well, there was something until Crawford fought him. So obviously he's doing a great job because he's making everybody look normal.
Apparently no rehydration clause, am I hearing that right? He wants full smoke at that weight.
Let's go, man.
Yet he's quick to point out that the choice rests squarely on Canelo's shoulders. Canelo has his own plan. Crawford admitted almost as if he's resigned to the idea that Canelo might favor other fights. It's true Canelo has choices. David Benavidez, Dimitri Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, Yaron Ennis, and even Diego Pacheco are all names that make more business sense for the Mexican star. Crawford, despite his dominance, doesn't have the kind of PPV pull that Canelo lives on. Promoter Eddie Hearn even suggested that Crawford might hang up his gloves if the Canelo fight doesn't materialize. It's a bold prediction, but it represents the delicate position Crawford finds himself in. If he waits too long for Canelo, he risks fading into irrelevance. Boxing is a sport that rewards activity, and Crawford knows this, yet his recent inactivity coupled with his insistence on beating Canelo makes his position precarious. There's also the question of style. Crawford isn't known for his crowd-pleasing violence. His calculated Mayweather-esque approach to boxing, where defensive mastery and patience are valued over brawling, hasn't won over casual fans. It's a style that's successful, sure, but it's also one that can turn audiences off. His latest bout against Israel Madrimov is a case in point. Fans boo, critics pan the show, and the fight left more questions than answers. Some even say Crawford owes Madrimov a rematch to settle lingering doubts about the decision.
The others say, like, no, that's 2 more weight classes. Like, once he gets touched by Canelo, it's going to be different.
I am concerned about him absorbing a Canelo punch, especially through the course of 12 rounds. We do know this about Canelo. He's going to slow down, you know, so I think if
Canelo, on the other hand, has built his career on excitement, whether it's his brutal knockouts or his desire to take on dangerous opponents. Across multiple weight classes, Canelo has proven himself as the king of fighters fans love to watch. If Crawford versus Canelo happens, it's likely Crawford will lean into the plan that Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol used to beat Canelo's jab, move, pot shot, and clinch. It's successful, but it's also a strategy that could rob the fight of the fireworks fans would expect from such a high-profile matchup. Crawford, however, doesn't see it that way. He thinks a fight between him and Canelo would be electrifying. It won't be like any other fight that he's fought recently. Crawford said strongly whether that's true or not depends on how much risk Crawford is willing to take. Will he fight Canelo head-on, or will he play it safe and stick to the hit-and-run tactics? Only time will tell. One of the biggest hurdles in making this fight a reality is the site. Crawford rejected the idea of fighting at the 18,600-seat Sphere in Las Vegas, saying it's not big enough. He hinted at the chance of the fight being staged in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where boxing's newest financial benefactor, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, has been bankrolling mega events, but even that scenario seems unlikely unless Canelo's astronomical asking price is met. Crawford seems to understand this but stays hopeful. I would hope it would be somewhere where it can help both parties, he said diplomatically.
The Sheikh said that he would be willing to pay whatever you want to fight Crawford. Yeah.
If he's willing to pay whatever I want, hands down.
That'll work. Yeah, you're in. So if the number...
Crawford's trust in his ability to beat Canelo isn't just about self-belief. It's about sending a message by publicly declaring his readiness to face the Mexican superstar. He's putting pressure on Canelo to respond, but the reality is Canelo doesn't need Crawford. He can make more money fighting other opponents, and he doesn't have the same urgency to prove himself against a smaller man who, while talented, doesn't bring the same level of excitement or financial reward to the table. So where does that leave Crawford? If he's serious about facing Canelo, he may need to take a more strategic approach. Staying active is important. Fighting 3 or 4 times a year, as some have suggested, would keep his name in the headlines and build momentum moving up to 168 pounds and taking on top contenders like David Benavidez. David Morrell or Osley Glacius could also make a strong case for him as a potential opponent for Canelo, but Crawford seems hesitant to take those steps. Instead, he's banking on his reputation and undefeated record to lure Canelo into the ring. It's a risk and one that may not pay off. Canelo is bigger than me and stronger than me. Crawford admitting the physical disadvantages he would face, but he's quick to it. If he does decide to come my way and we get in the ring, we're going to be ready. Critics, however, remain wary. Abel Sanchez, the veteran coach who once led Gennady Golovkin, has dismissed the fight as ridiculous. He points to the 14 pounds weight gap between the two fighters and says that Crawford hasn't evolved enough to compete at the higher weight. Crawford is a great fighter, but he's been the same boxer from 135 to 147. Sanchez said Canelo has continued to improve as he's moved through the divisions. That's the difference.
Talk all the crazy stuff about me going up and having a tough time, but he went up in weight and lost. That's the difference. I went up weight and won. He went up and lost. You know, so let's not do that, Canelo.
Even if Crawford does get the fight, the question remains, can he deliver against Madrimov? He struggled to convince. If he brings the same level of performance against Canelo, it's hard to see how he could come out on top. And yet Crawford stays undeterred. There is no question in my mind that I can beat anyone I step in the ring with, he said. It's a bold statement and one that underscores just how much faith he has in his skills. For now, the ball is in Canelo's court. Crawford can talk all he wants, but unless the Mexican star sees value in the fight, it's unlikely to happen. And even if it does, Crawford will have to prove that he's more than just talk. He'll need to back up his words with action, and that means taking risks, staying active, and showing the world that he's not just a great fighter, but a fighter who can adapt, evolve, and rise to the occasion.
Canelo fight, realistically left your mind once he said he's not interested, or you still pursuing it?
Not at all. I think business talk. With the right business come across the table, Yeah, it happened. I just be talking, man. Canelo a big dude, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I believe in my ability.
Trainer Jose Benavidez Sr. didn't hold back when discussing the possible matchup between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. For him, it's not just about tastes, it's about fairness and size. He dismissed the idea totally, saying that such a fight wouldn't be competitive and that it would feel almost absurd to consider Crawford a 4-pounder as a viable opponent for Canelo. Jose Sr.'s frustration didn't just stem from the idea of fighting Crawford but also from the broader dynamics at play in boxing matchmaking. He thinks fighters like his son David Benavidez deserve bigger chances but are being overlooked.
I don't really like to bash somebody because at the end of the day, I give respect to Canelo. He's a great fighter.
Yeah.
He's one of the best Mexican fighters of all time.
But wanting to fight him, David, is not bashing him.
Yeah.
That's not bashing him.
But that's what I'm saying. They spin the narrative on Instagram.
Right.
If I say something, they say this or that. But
From Jose's senior viewpoint, Canelo is far too big and strong for Crawford. His remarks reflected a strong disdain for what he sees as a mismatch, describing the potential fight as one-sided and questioning the logic behind it. Jose SR emphasized that David Benavidez would never even entertain such a fight, as he considers beneath his level, even stated that he would feel embarrassed to request such a matchup for his son, doubling down on his view that Crawford doesn't belong in the same conversation as larger fighters like Canelo or Benavidez. What fueled his even more was the fact that Canelo seemed open to entertaining them idea of a fight with Crawford but hadn't shown the same level of interest in fighting. David Benavidez to Jose SR this felt like a slap in the face, especially given the efforts Benavidez has made to prove himself as a legitimate contender. He pointed out that Canelo has avoided his son not because of merit but because of personal feelings about how David approached him. Canelo allegedly disliked Benavidez's aggressive tactics and trash talk when trying to secure a fight, and this has kept the two from facing off in the ring. Jose Sr. is now fully focused on training David Benavidez for his upcoming fight against David Morrell. He called the matchup one of the toughest of Benavidez's career and stressed the importance of not underestimating Morrell, who has proven himself to be a young and dangerous fighter, with Benavidez having a WBC interim light heavyweight title and Morrell being the WBA regular champion. The stakes for this fight are high, and the Benavidez team is treating it with the seriousness it deserves. For Jose Sr., this fight is the priority, not Canelo, not Crawford, and not the ongoing debates about who gets what in boxing.
I think Canelo's gonna put the beats on him like Dr. Dre.
Do we get a knockdown from Canelo, or does Bud knock down Canelo?
Nah, Canelo's not going down. You could hit Canelo with a Louisville slugger. He's just gonna smile at you.
They ain't say gonna beat him like the beats of Dr. Dre.
Yeah, he's gonna put the beats on him like Dre.
But why? Because
despite his frustrations with Canelo's apparent unwillingness to face Benavidez, Jose Sr. didn't entirely dismiss the idea of a future fight. He acknowledged the efforts of Turki Alalshik in making major fights happen, expressing hope that down the line a matchup between Canelo and Benavidez might come to fruition. However, he made it clear that for now his attention is entirely on David Morrell. Jose Sr.'s confidence in his son's abilities is unwavering, but he also sees the challenges ahead and refuses to allow distractions to derail their preparation. It's worth noting that Jose Sr.'s stance on Canelo and Crawford reflects deeper issues within boxing: the politics of matchmaking, the emphasis on money over merit, and the influence of personalities on fight negotiations all play a role in shaping the sport. For someone like Jose Sr., who has dedicated his career to building up fighters like David Benavidez, find these factors incredibly frustrating. He sees his son as a fighter who has earned his place at the top but is being denied the chances he deserves due to factors beyond his control. Jose Sr.'s criticism of the Canelo-Crawford matchup also shows the ongoing debate about weight classes and the fairness of certain fights. While Crawford is certainly a skilled and accomplished fighter, moving up to face someone like Canelo, who has proven himself as super middleweight and beyond, raises questions about the competitive balance. For Jose Sr., it's not just about whether Crawford could hold his own. It's about whether such a fight makes sense at all. In his view, the size disparity is too large to ignore, and the fight would only serve to highlight that difference rather than provide a truly competitive spectacle.
I can't go down anymore. But like he say, when they ask him for the Germonta fight, they don't wanna get credit for that fight. It's the same for me. I don't need to take that fight because everybody's gonna say it's too small, and then he need to enjoy his fight.
Adding to his frustration is the perception that Canelo is cherry-picking opponents rather than taking on the toughest challenges available. While Canelo has faced a long list of top-tier fighters throughout his career, critics like Jose Asar argue that he has avoided certain matchups that could pose a real threat. The fact that Canelo seems more interested in fighting Crawford than Benavidez only fuels his narrative, making it even more difficult for Jose Asar to hide his disappointment. Despite his frustration with the current state of boxing, Jose Asar hasn't lost hope entirely. He expressed some optimism about the potential for big fights in the future, particularly with the involvement of influential figures like Turki Alalshik. However, he also made it clear that he's done waiting for Canelo to step up and face his son. For now, the focus is on building Benavidez's legacy through other means, and if Canelo continues to avoid the matchup, so be it. Well, what do you think? Share your ideas below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more information. See you in the next one.